The old Allenville General Hospital stood on a hill overlooking the town. It was a looming presence. The building was once a beacon of hope. Now it was a decaying monument to suffering and despair. The paint peeled from its walls. Windows were boarded up like vacant eyes. The air hung heavy with the smell of decay. Locals whispered tales of strange noises and unexplained cold spots. They said it was haunted. The ghost of a vengeful nurse, they claimed, roamed the halls. The hospital was due for demolition, but first a lone doctor remained. He was tasked with clearing out the last few patients. Dr. William Cartwright was a young man. He was skeptical of ghost stories. He would soon find out the truth. This assignment would test his sanity. He would learn the hard way about the horrors that lingered within Allenville's walls.
Dr. Cartwright stepped into the echoing silence of the hospital. Dust motes danced in the weak beams of sunlight. He shivered. The air was unnaturally cold. His footsteps echoed in the deserted corridors. He felt a presence. Someone or something was watching him. His footsteps led him to the records room. It was a chaotic mess. Files were strewn everywhere. He needed to find the remaining patient files. These were the last souls awaiting transfer. As he dug through the files, he heard a soft whisper. The name Evelyn hung in the air. He dismissed it as his imagination. As the sun began to set, he found the files he needed. There were only 3 patients left. He felt uneasy. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He decided to see the patients. Perhaps talking to them would ease his mind. Little did he know, he was walking into a nightmare. He was stepping closer to the truth behind the haunting of Allenville.
The first 2 patients were elderly and frail. They were eager to leave the spooky hospital. But the 3rd patient, a middle-aged man named Mr. Henderson, was different. He was terrified.
"Don't let her take me," he pleaded, his eyes wide with fear. "Evelyn, she comes at night."
Dr. Cartwright tried to reassure him. He attributed Mr. Henderson's fear to medication, but uneasiness gnawed at him. Later that night, as Dr. Cartwright made his rounds, he saw her. A tall figure in a dated nurse's uniform glided past the end of the hallway. Her back was to him. He couldn't make out her face. He rushed towards the figure, but she was gone. The hallway was empty. A chill settled over him. He knew then that Mr. Henderson's fear was not a delusion. Allenville General Hospital was indeed haunted, and he was trapped inside with a malevolent spirit. The next day, Mr. Henderson was dead. His face was contorted in terror. Dr. Cartwright felt a cold dread grip his heart. He knew he had to uncover the truth about Evelyn. He couldn't ignore this any longer. He returned to the records room. Frantically, he searched for any mention of Evelyn. Finally, he found a dusty old file. It belonged to Nurse Evelyn Marsh, who had worked at the hospital decades ago. Her file was filled with disturbing reports. Patients had complained about her cruel treatment. Some had even died mysteriously under her care. The hospital administration had dismissed the allegations against Evelyn. Then, one day, she vanished. Her disappearance remained unsolved. Dr. Cartwright felt a chill. He was starting to understand the dark history of Allenville General Hospital, and he knew he was in terrible danger. That night, as Dr. Cartwright tried to sleep, he heard a voice. It was soft at first, almost a whisper. It seemed to come from the walls themselves.
"They wouldn't listen. Those patients, they were suffering. I was helping them."
He sat bolt upright in bed. The room was ice cold. He could feel a presence in the room with him. He saw her then, standing at the foot of his bed, Evelyn Marsh. Her face was pale and gaunt. Her eyes burned with a cold fire.
"They called me a murderer, but I was merciful. I ended their pain.
Her voice dripped with venom.
And now, you will help me finish what I started."
Dr. Cartwright was paralyzed with fear. He understood now. Evelyn Marsh was not just a ghost. She was a vengeful spirit, and she was back to seek her twisted justice. Dr. Cartwright knew he had to stop Evelyn. He couldn't let her continue her reign of terror. He had to find a way to appease her restless spirit. He remembered an old legend, a way to confront and perhaps even banish a spirit. It was a dangerous gamble, but he had no other choice. He decided to confront Evelyn in the morgue. It was the coldest, darkest part of the hospital, and the most likely place to find her. Armed with a crucifix and a vial of holy water, he descended into the depths of the hospital. The air grew colder with each step. The smell of formaldehyde intensified. He could feel her presence growing stronger. The heavy steel door of the morgue creaked open. Rows of stainless steel tables lined the room, each one a chilling reminder of death's embrace, and at the far end of the room, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood Evelyn. Her eyes burned into him.
You dare to confront me?
Evelyn's voice echoed through the morgue, filled with icy fury.
You are but a man, a mere mortal who cannot comprehend the burden I carry.
She glided towards him, her spectral form shimmering in the dim light. Dr. Cartwright held up the crucifix, his hand trembling.
Evelyn, I know what you did, but you need to move on. Find peace.
He splashed the holy water towards her. The droplets seemed to sizzle as they passed through her form. Evelyn shrieked, a bone-chilling sound that echoed through the morgue.
Peace. You think there is peace for someone like me? I brought peace to those who suffered, and now I shall bring peace to you.
Evelyn's rage manifested as a physical force. The temperature plummeted. The heavy steel door of the morgue slammed shut with a resounding clang. Dr. Cartwright was trapped. He fumbled for the door handle, but it was ice cold and wouldn't budge. He spun around to face Evelyn.
Evelyn, what do you want from me?
She was no longer the spectral figure he had first encountered. She was now a horrifying apparition. Her face was contorted in rage. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. Her hands, once gentle instruments of healing, were now skeletal claws.
There is no escape from me. You will join the others. You will become part of Allenville, forever.
Fear, raw and primal, surged through Dr. Cartwright. He was trapped with a vengeful spirit. He was facing his own mortality. Dr. Cartwright's mind raced. He had to get out. He scanned the morgue, desperate for a way out. His eyes fell on a small service window high on the wall. It was his only chance. He pushed a metal cart toward the window. He climbed, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear Evelyn's enraged screams behind him. Her icy claws scraped against the metal cart, just missing his foot.
Come on, just a little more.
He fumbled with the latch, his fingers numb with fear. He managed to pry the window open. He squeezed through the narrow opening. He landed heavily on the ground outside, gasping for breath. He didn't waste a moment. He scrambled to his feet and ran. He didn't dare look back. He could hear Evelyn's screams echoing in the night. He ran until he reached the safety of his car. Dr. Cartwright never returned to Allenville General Hospital. The memory of that night, of Evelyn's wrath, haunted his dreams. He couldn't shake the feeling of cold dread that clung to him. He couldn't escape the chilling memory of her touch. He was a changed man. His youthful skepticism was gone. In its place was a profound understanding of the darkness that could lurk beneath the surface of the ordinary. He knew that some wounds, some traumas, ran too deep to ever truly heal.
I tried to move on, I tried to forget. But the terror of Allenville stayed with me. A constant reminder of the night I came face to face with the supernatural. The night I narrowly escaped the clutches of a vengeful spirit.
He was haunted by the night he narrowly escaped the clutches of a vengeful spirit. The old Allenville General Hospital was demolished a few weeks after Dr. Cartwright's escape. The ground was consecrated. A park now stands in its place. But the stories remain. Locals still whisper about the ghostly nurse. They say that on the anniversary of her disappearance, you can still hear Evelyn's screams echoing in the wind. Some say her spirit was never laid to rest. They say she is still trapped within the grounds of the old hospital, seeking solace, seeking revenge, and waiting for the day she can claim another soul.
The story of Evelyn Marsh serves as a chilling reminder. Some sins can never be forgiven. Some wounds never truly heal. And some places will forever be haunted by the echoes of their past.